Hi guys, today we are doing Arithmetic Sequences Day 2. So on Day 1, we learned, just as a recap, that arithmetic sequences mean that we are adding by the same number each time. That's what it means to be arithmetic, to add by the same number each time in the sequence. So today we're going to learn how to actually write an arithmetic sequence equation. The good news is you've seen this equation before, and it comes in the form y equals mx plus b. So it's one that you're hopefully familiar with, comfortable with, y equals mx plus b. With this equation, there are two things that are really important. The first letter that's really important here is your m, and we already spoke about this on Day 1. M is your common difference. So on the box in your notes, you can fill this in. That m is really just standing for your common difference. And remember that common difference is really just the number we are adding by. So in the sequences, it's just the number that we're going up by or down by. Okay, so all of that should fit inside of your m box. And then the other important part of this equation is your b. And the b, in most cases, we know is called the y-intercept. So when we're looking at a sequence, how we find b is that it's the number before, that's why it's our letter b, the number before the sequence started. And I'll explain what that means in a minute. The number before the sequence started. So essentially, in order to find the number before the sequence started, we have to work backwards to find it. So in most sequences, we look ahead and we're trying to figure out what we're adding by. This time, we're going to work backwards to figure out what came before that original number. Okay, so those are my two pieces. You can fill in your boxes with them. And then we're going to go right into the examples today. So example number 1 on your notes, it says 3, 5, 7, 9, 11. Looking at the sequence, you might already know what we are adding by, our common difference. So I'm going to use my colors today. Common difference, we're going to do orange as our m. Remember in lesson 1, to find the common difference, we're just trying to figure out what am I going up by or down by each time. So to get from 3 to 5, 5 to 7, 7 to 9, each time, I'm really just adding by the number 2. So my m, or my common difference, is the number 2. That's what we're adding by. The other part of this sequence is my b, and that's the number that came before the sequence started. So we have to figure out what would have been before that 3 in this sequence in order to find my b values. So that's why I said it's kind of like working backwards to figure out what would come before 3 in this sequence. Well, we know that our common difference is really like we're adding 2 each time. So to work backwards, I'm going to subtract by 2 to go the opposite way. 3 minus 2 gives me 1. You could have also maybe just done that in your head. What came before 3? So that 1 is my b value. It's the number that came before 3 in the sequence. Now we're just putting the whole equation together. So my equation is y equals my m value, which we said was the number 2. X is just going to stay x. And then plus my b value, we said was the number 1. So we just took those two numbers that we found, our common difference and the number before, and we put it into our equation. And that's my answer here. The equation for the sequence is y equals 2x plus 1. Okay, let's try example number 2 together as well. So first thing I want to do, look at the sequence, try and figure out if you can see a pattern. Here we're going down by 5 each time. So to get from 35 to 30, 30 to 25 to 20, each time we're going down by 5. So I'm not going to use a plus 5, I'm going to use a minus 5. So my common difference here, my m value, is -5, because each time I'm going down by 5. Now to find what came before, again, this might be kind of easy to figure out what number would come before it, or you can just think about working backwards. Instead of subtracting 5 each time, this time I'm going to add 5. And when I add 5 to 35, I get the number 40 as my missing value that came before. So my B value is the number 40. And then I just want to put everything together. So the equation for this sequence is y equals my m value, which is -5. X just stays as an x. And then I have plus the number 40. And that's my equation, y equals mx plus b. Pretty simple because it's kind of like a puzzle, and just putting it all together to create this equation, y equals -5x plus 40. Okay, one more that we're going to do together, just because we have some negatives in there, so it's a little bit different, a little bit trickier. We're going to start by, just like always, finding the common difference. What's happening each time in this equation to get to the next number. So from -10 to -7 to -4 to -1 to +2. So we're getting bigger. Even though the numbers technically look like they're getting smaller, we're getting towards positive numbers here. So I'm actually adding in this case by the difference between them, which is 3. Okay. Again, you can use a calculator to help you figure out what's the difference between those two numbers if you need to. So my +3 each time, 3 is my common difference. And then our B value means that we have to work backwards. So to work backwards, instead of adding 3, we have to become more negative. So we're going to subtract 3. So my B value is a -13. So B is a -13. And then when I put my entire equation together, the equation is y equals m, which is 3. Again, x just stays as an x. And then this time I have a -13 as my b value. And that's my equation, y equals mx plus b. Okay. Again, if you have any questions, like always, feel free to reach out to me. Make sure that you take a picture of these notes and try the ones on the next page on your own, and then you can submit them onto Google Classroom. All right, thanks guys.